Good day. That's the end of my Australian. So it's so good to be here with you, obviously because of Allie's baptism, also because of the fact that we've not been here for 2 years. In fact, it was almost exactly 2 years ago that we were last here with no idea what was coming, nor did you. We just thought life was normal. We heard about some sick cruise ships and a few things like that, and we heard about China, and it was all just stuff that just sort of went in one ear and out the other. Never to guess that this was going to change our entire world. Until now, we have come to a global moment that there's only a few of those in history, and usually you only have 1 or 2 of those in your life where everyone knows where they were at that time. You know, we're never going to come a place, any of us that are at least old enough to be in school, that will say, remember COVID-19? And they'll say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Everyone has lived it. Everyone has learned all the new words that go with it. Antigen tests. What in the world? You know, face coverings, really? Ventilators, ICUs, deaths. From a virus that we had never heard of before, that became a political mess, that became a point of controversy and fighting and disagreement, splitting churches and families, and it's been far more than a virus. It's been just a nasty time in Earth's history, and we are eager for it to get over. When that will happen, nobody seems to know. But it will be good when someday we can look back, and whatever normal looks like at that time, we'll be able to look back and go, yeah, those just were tough times. You know, as Christians, we're not supposed to be surprised. We have been told clearly in God's Word that as the time comes closer to Jesus coming, that there are going to be more and more things that happen that we didn't expect. That there will be more things that take place that we thought, I never thought that would happen. But if there's one thing that has been a terrible side effect of COVID-19, it's been the sad reality that we really need each other. Yeah. It's not been healthy, this social distancing. It's been necessary, but it's not been healthy. The isolation of being locked down, I guess it had to happen. We're dealing with a real virus here. It's not pretend. It is extremely contagious, and the only way you can really deal with it is try to stay away from it. But by staying away from the virus, we've had to stay away from each other. And that's not been healthy. Loneliness, discouragement. It's become very real. In fact, it's become a crisis worldwide, where people who are suffering alone. You've probably seen and heard the stories of sad times of someone who's having to die in an ICU room where the only one holding their hand is a nurse. There's no one there. It shouldn't happen. But you find these things happening more than just with viruses. There's probably not anyone here who is going to be honest with themselves, who will not say, I've had times where I've felt locked down. Not because the government said you can't go anywhere, but just your life said, you're not going anywhere. It's not working. You're not able to do what you want to do for whatever reason it might be. You just feel trapped. There's probably no one here that is not able to say, I've had times in my life where I have felt isolated and alone. Not because of some regulation, but just because life sometimes separates. For whatever circumstance it might be, There are times in life where we just divide. Loneliness, it's an epidemic. People hide it, but it's an epidemic. As I thought about that, though, I couldn't help but think of the story that's in John chapter 5. That's where we're going to be. If you have your Bibles or however you have a Bible, open that, because I just want us to look at a story here of someone who was locked down, isolated, and alone. And what Jesus did. Locked down, isolated, and alone. John chapter 5, it starts with this. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which it called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. Verse 4. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water, and whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Verse 5, now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there in that condition a long time, he said to him, do you want to be made well? The sick man answered him, Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred, but while I am coming, another steps down before me. Jesus said to him, Rise, take up your bed, and walk. It's just another one of Jesus' miracles. But I've enjoyed over time trying to look at them and say, what's really taking place here? What's not taking place here? This is a very unique miracle. And if you put yourself into it, you realize there's things happening here that don't seem to match up with how things have happened before. This is an area which is like a hospital ward during wartime. Everyone there is sick. Lame, paralyzed, blind, you name it. Every disease is represented there. It had to be a horrible sight to walk in and look at. This was not some beautiful summer day at the pool. These were the kind of people you just stayed away from. Each one desperate to get better, but hopeless that the odds would ever come their way. And Jesus heals one. One. If I were doing this would have been a perfect time for Jesus. I mean, you got a whole crowd of sick people to literally walk through. You're healed, get up, you're healed, and you, and all of you over there, get up, you're all healed. What a day that would have been. Would that have spread like wildfire through the town? Everyone comes storming out of the pool of Bethesda, whole and alive and healthy. But Jesus chose one. Why? Why did he only choose one? The Bible gives us the hint. Jesus spots one guy. This is not like the blind man Bartimaeus, remember, who's sitting by the side of the road, yelling out, Jesus, have mercy on me, Son of David, have mercy. This is not this guy. He doesn't even know who Jesus is. There's no sign of him going, over here, Jesus. Jesus spots him and says, I know he's been here for a long time. A long time. 38 years. That's hard to even wrap your brain around. But there is one more point that is vital that Jesus knew. And that was, this man had no one to help him. Now that's one of the saddest verses in the Bible. It's one of the saddest verses in the Bible. It said that he has no one to help him. I mean, it's one thing to suffer, but to suffer alone. It's one thing to be in trouble, but to be in trouble with no help. Now there's very few of us here today, if any, who could honestly say, I have no one who could help me. I mean, the truth is, and thank God for it, that if any one of us here found ourselves in a mess, you could come up with someone that would help you. I hope you could come up with even more. You might feel very grateful right now if you just want to let your brain go and say, do you realize how many people are out there that if I made a phone call or sent a text or anything I want, they'd be there for me? And you've experienced it at a church. We could have testimonies here today of people going, yes, this person helped me, this person helped me, this person came. That's the way it is supposed to be. No one should be alone. No one. And Jesus spotted someone who was, and it broke his heart. There's a verse in 2 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 9. You probably know it. It goes like this. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. I think that describes what Jesus did when he walks into the pool of Bethesda. He starts to scan the crowd. And he can't help but notice one guy who has no one. The good news of this story, my friends, is this. You never have no one. You never have no one. Even when you think you do. God forbid that time in life where you feel that you have no one who cares, that you have no one who listens, that you have no one who understands. God forbid that you ever experience that, but if you ever do, please know that God's eyes run to and fro over the whole earth, and you never escape his look. You never escape his look. He is watching out for us. You are never alone. That's why he makes some statements like in Isaiah 41. Listen to the assurance of this. Put this in the context of an old man laying there 38 years with no one, no hope, nobody that's coming. And suddenly he hears in his ears Isaiah 41 verse 10, fear not, I am with you, says God. Be not dismayed, I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's good news. It's good news for bad times. And it's hope when life gets just simply too much. There was a practice among the American Indians, the Cherokee tribe, when a young man reached the point of manhood, which was usually about 12. Many cultures have something, that says you are now no longer a boy, you are now a man. Well, in the Cherokee Nation, there was a culture, there was a practice that they had a big event, with all the things, and the boy was recognized. But at the end of the day, he and his father headed off into the forest. The boy didn't know what was happening, but off they went. And they walked and they walked and they walked and they walked until the sun was almost gone. Then the father explained to the boy that the last thing that was part of this ceremony of manhood was that he was going to be blindfolded. sat on a stump, and left there all night. In the morning, when the sun comes up and you could see it through the blindfold enough, the boy then could take the blindfold off and find his way back to the tribe. Now, put this into the imaginary mind of a young boy. The little noises you hear, do you know how long that night must have seemed? Do you know the things that went through that kid's head of who was going to attack him, of what was going to attack him, of what was going to eat him as he sat on the stump in the pitch dark of night, waiting for the sun to come up? You can be sure he never slept. Finally, when the sun did come up enough and the sun was seen through the blindfold, he, with grateful heart, took his blindfold off, only to discover that his dad was still there. He was never really alone. Now, I wish this world were a better place, don't you? I wish that we never even had to think about the fact that you or me, any of us, are ever to go through those times of darkness where we hear everything, where every fear, where every imagination gets to the worst. God goes, that's life on this sinful planet. But you need to know, my eyes run to and fro. I am with you. I will strengthen you. Even if no one else does, I'm here for you. Boy, I'll tell you, that's why you become a Christian, right, Allie? You're never alone. You never are left by yourself. God cares for you. Now, those of you who come from a family that has siblings, I come from a family of 4. Our daughter comes from a family of 4. Our son-in-law comes from a family. They're siblings, you know. Allie's got 2 brothers. Siblings, they're great, right? Have you ever asked, as a group of siblings, usually when you get older, who was the favorite? That's a dangerous question, but it's a fun question. If you've never done it, get together and have that talk, because the worst stuff comes out. You were mom's favorite. There is no question. You never got in trouble. You got this. I had that. You're the favorite. And that is just great fun. Now, Amy's 3 brothers, they think they know who our favorite is. And we'll just leave it at that. But anyway, that was happening in this little family discussion. They're having a good time. There's laughter, little offensive things said every once in a while. All of a sudden, the mother blurts out. She goes, well, I did have a favorite. Now that kind of stopped things, because moms aren't supposed to have favorites. The argument is simply trying to figure out that, but moms aren't supposed to have favorites. And she says, yes, I had a favorite. And they're all looking around. Is it me? Is it you? And Mom said, whichever one of you was sick, you were my favorite. Whichever one of you was in trouble, you were my favorite. Whichever one of you was hurting, you were my favorite. Whoa. Suddenly a lesson of love is taught that only God exhibits fully. Do you realize the more trouble you're in, the more favorite God looks toward you? He picks you out of a crowd of other hurting people, and he knows, you need me, I'll be there. And Jesus makes a beeline, excuse me, I'm heading for that guy over there, because I will never leave you or forsake you. And right now you think you have no one. And I want you to know it's not true. You do. You're my favorite. I give you special attention. But there's just one more point from this story. The good news first, that honestly, my friends, God is a good Father. He really is. He's much better than any of us dads ever dreamed of being. He is a good Father. And you can trust Him in the good times. You can trust Him at the worst of times. Because He says, I see you and I care. But when I read this story, it suddenly becomes practical on the question of, where were His friends? Where were the people that were supposed to be caring for Him? You see, there's another story that you maybe have even thought of already. It's over in Mark chapter 2, of another healing, of another sick man. Except this one was brought by 4 friends. Yeah, put the story there, a whole night. They want to bring him to Jesus. He can't get there. Hear it? Same thing. Paralytic, laying by the pool. I can't get to the pool because no one will help me. Another paralytic in another town hears of Jesus coming, and suddenly 4 friends show up. And they go, we'll take you. Oh, no, don't. Guys, you got a lot to do. No, seriously, we will do this for you. We care about you. We'll carry you. And it only gets worse if you know the story. What length these 4 guys go. And they get there, and of course they can't get close to Jesus. You know that. They go up on top of Peter's roof, tear it up, tear the roof up. And they let this guy down on the stretcher in front of Jesus. And Jesus affirms their faith, not his. He healed him because of their faith. As Christians, my friends, we are called to care for each other. And that takes work. It's not easy. It's not easy. It takes inconvenience. I don't know where this guy, I don't know the whole story of this. I don't know where his brothers were. I don't know where his uncle was. I don't know where his friends were. I don't know where the kids he grew up with for however he became paralyzed. I don't know where they were, but they were not there to help him. They were not. And that's sad. And so I think this story comes with an amazing challenge to us all. A challenge that not only are we assured that we will never be alone, but a challenge for us to say, if I want to be like Jesus, and his eyes run to and fro over the whole earth, looking for who he can show himself strong on behalf of, what would happen is we, as God's people, also took our gaze and took it off ourselves quite so much and actually looked around where we are and say, is there anyone I could help? Is there anyone in need? Now, the temptation with this is always to take it over the top. And it's like, there's no way. You know how many people are starving every year? You know how many people are sick? I can't solve any. No, God says, just look where you are. Is there someone who could use a word of encouragement? Is there someone who you could show that you care? Is there just that one who you can help and make a difference? That's what makes us true Christians. In fact, it's interesting to know that Jesus made it clear in Matthew 25, and it's in a very uncomfortable verse actually, where he tells us what he's looking for when he comes again. And although the 10 Commandments are very important, and the better we observe them, the better off we are, he does not list the 10 Commandments, even the 4th one, as something he's looking for when he comes again. Even as important as tithing is and offerings, and God says it helps you not be stingy, it helps cure that selfishness. He does not come in that verse and say, I'm looking for how much you gave. He gets really uncomfortable because he comes and he says, I'm looking for is how you treated the least of these. That gets tough because a lot of those least of these are not likable. They're not the perfect type of person. They're not the kind you would choose to be part of your inner circle. Jesus goes, because my people also look around, and if they see someone they can help, they'll do whatever they can, as small as it might be, to help. This miracle, I believe, comes not only as a marvelous promise of assurance of God's love, but a challenge for us as God's people to get looking less at ourselves and more at those around us. This only applies to America, but I think that it's probably true around the world. But I found this thing that was done in 2019, a survey. So it's pre-COVID. How do you like these words anymore? You've probably never heard the word pre-COVID, have you? We're looking forward to post-COVID. Anyway, so this was done during pre-COVID, during when we said life was normal, okay? And they simply, the survey was asking people, have you experienced significant loneliness during this year? That's the question. Not just, you had this little funny feeling. No, have you experienced significant loneliness during this year, pre-COVID? 79% of young people 18 to 22 said they had. 79%. The millennials, 71% said they had experienced significant loneliness. Even the boomers, those of us who are getting a little old, that we think we're kind of tough, we're the builders, we're the ones that put this world together. Even this generation, it said that half of them confessed, and boomers are terrible at confessing. Boomers always want to look strong. We always want to look in control. For a boomer to admit anything is a miracle. 50% said, I have experienced significant loneliness. Wow. Those numbers just kind of blew me away, because it's like my eyes do not have to run very far. They don't have to go to Ethiopia. They don't have to go to Eastern Europe. They don't have to go to anywhere in the islands of the Pacific. Right around us, I can guarantee you at any time that there are people, there's someone that could just use a little encouragement. There's someone that could use a helping hand. There's someone who Jesus sees and would like you to see as well. I read a story recently of a 85-year-old lady. This was a little tiny town where everyone knows everyone. This lady had grown up in the town, so everyone knew her. Tiny town. She gets her 85th birthday. You've heard where everyone does a birthday party for her. She's at a care home and everything, but everyone knows her. The newspaper shows up, because in those small communities, newspapers look for anything to write about. So they have a little party for this 85-year-old lady who everyone loves, and there's so many people there. And of course, the journalist has to ask her, what's the secret of your life? What have you learned over 85 years? Everyone listened as she spoke. She said, I have learned to keep busy helping others. And everyone just kind of went, oh. And then she says, yeah, because there's a little old lady down the road right now that I'm taking care of. And everyone had to laugh. You're the little old lady. What are you talking about? But she herself had learned that what made life worthwhile was keeping busy helping others. Being this person who's willing to reach out and do whatever they can say they can do. You in Australia understand storms on the ocean. This was a big storm. And there were a lot of debris that had washed up on the beaches. And the storm was gone, and people were back getting out there, but the beaches were a mess. You've probably seen that happen. One old guy is walking along, and he's just having a good walk, finally, after the storm has passed. But up ahead, he sees a young boy, and he's noticing what the kid is doing. And the kid is walking along, and every once in a while, he reaches down and he picks something up, and then he walks out into the ocean just a bit, and then he puts it down. Then he goes back and he starts looking among all the mess that's washed up on the beach again. And he finds something else and he picks it up and carries it out into the ocean and puts it in. The old man finally gets her and says, "What are you doing, boy?" He says, "I'm saving starfish." The man kind of laughs and says, "Son, this beach goes on for miles. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of stranded starfish. You don't think you can save them all, do you?" The boy walked over and found another one and bent down and picked it up, and he said, "No, but I could save this one." And he carried it out into the ocean and put it back in. No, folks, we are not the Savior of the world. Jesus is. He died for all the sins. His eyes run to and fro over the whole earth. But he asks us to partner with him, to pay attention to those who are just around us, knowing that there's always someone who could use just a little love, just a hand of help, just a little support or a hug, whatever it can be. There is someone. God is there for us. No matter what happens, you are never alone. May we, as God's people, determine that we will at least try to be sure that we're also paying attention, that our eyes don't simply become focused on us, but we look around and say, "No, I cannot save the world, but I can help one. I can help one." And when you help one, you realize that maybe you can help two. And then you find yourself testifying like that 85-year-old lady that, "I just love staying busy helping people. I just love it." We're going to sing a song as we close. It's called "There's a Candle." It's about the challenge that each of us have. All we have is a candle. We are not a sun. We are not a star. But we have a candle, and we can bless someone with our candle. There is a candle.